Welcome to Building in Woodland Elf House Part 2. Portions of this video are recorded in real time and portions are sped up. Thank you for being here.
Okay, I think I have the sound turned on. My dog is barking in the background, so just trying to keep us safe. So I apologize for that if you hear that up ahead of time. But anyway, the house is all glued together, so I'm happy with that. So I decided to, overnight I was thinking about what's going to go inside the house, who lives in this house, and so forth. So my intention is to display the house on its base most of the time and whoever looks can look inside the windows, and that's where we've come to. What are they going to see when they look inside these windows? So that's my concern. And if you notice, I've made the door approximately 3 inches tall, so we're working in half scale here. So I've decided to, whoever lives in here is going to need a stove, so I'm going to need, or a fireplace, but I'm going to go with a stove, so there'll be a pipe coming out of the roof somewhere. And also they're going to need a place to sleep, which I decided to make a small stairwell and a sleeping bedroom loft type space. So we're going to have to create that visible from outside. I'll do a little dormer window here. So I was just working on that, so taking measurements. Wanted to leave room. You notice there's a door and then windows on all sides, so I can't put the stove. That's why I went with a stove as opposed to a fireplace. I suppose I could put a fireplace in the corner, but I decided to go with a stove, so there'll be a pipe coming out, like I said. And so I've offset this dormer window just a little bit. Trying to hold the house from tipping. So right upstairs from here, I've offset the window just a tad, so there'll be space for the pipe coming out here. So that's the intention. And I drew a little space for a loft bed, and I need to make a window space that's a little bit smaller. You know, inside it'll be bigger, and I will have to attach that to the underside of this roof. So that's going to be very interesting, but I'll see what that entails when I get there. So we're going to go forward with cutting this apart and making the dormer window. Okay, first thing I have to do is cut open the window very carefully with the X-Acto knife. And I decided right away I didn't want to cut on that line. I chose instead to draw a line just to the inside, because on the other windows I did this and created a window frame area. And worked very carefully. Those X-Acto knives are very sharp. This is sped up video, so just go very slowly. And I'm just taking an opportunity to try to see what the window is going to look like and what size the loft might be. So I decided on an L shape, and I'm just going to take another look and see if it fits in there. And I was happy with it. You know, made a choice of where to cut it down. And now I'm just gluing it to another piece of the chipboard to make it a double thickness like the other walls. And there was a join where I didn't have a full piece of chipboard, so I did put a piece of computer paper across the join, and I doubled that up as well. So set that aside to dry. I decided to
make some ledger boards that I could rest the edge of the loft upon while I was trying to install it. And so I decided to clean up the cut there real quick on the window opening. And then in just thinking about making the dormer, the edges of the dormer, I was trying to decide exactly how to cut those pieces. And then I realized, oh, I can just use the edge of the roof because it's a similar line to what I'm going to need. And I see I got my head in the camera there. So just drawing the edge of the roof there. Luckily I can stick my hand up inside the house to hold that piece securely. And then just going to trim that and make a second one. And these will be the walls of that dormer as it protrudes from the ceiling, the roof line. You'll see. And it won't be a perfect fit, but it'll be very close, so it'll work out. And scoring the printed side of the chipboard. Again, that's sped up video, so be careful when you're using those X-Acto knives. And just making a second one. Chose to use a different piece of the chipboard scraps. So just tracing it out so I can get two more and glue them to each other and have a second wall. I couldn't resist the urge to look and see what it's going to be like with the two walls because it's just so exciting having it come to fruition, and I was happy with it. And here you can see how it fits nicely against the roof line. Just taking a mark where I want to trim the top there, even with the top of that window area that I had previously drawn on the window there. And just using the mat to square up my little scrap, the wall, and then draw. And it's easy to, these double thicknesses, it takes many passes with an X-Acto blade, and that one is not perfectly sharp. It has been used and dulled a bit. So again, taking a look to see it has been trimmed down, and I'm happy with it. Now I realized I had to make a panel for the front wall running along that bottom line. So that's what those pieces on the mat are. They're going to be my front wall. And I was attempting to have three hands. And with these pieces, it was easy to lose track of which one was the top, which way was up. So I found it necessary and helpful to draw arrows so that I could remember when it came time to actually glue the piece in place. And then just checking again. And here I'm going to set about making the window much in the same fashion that I did on the other windows. There you see the one on the lower wall there, just on the house. So just drawing out the frame, and it'll also have 4 panes, and they're rustic little rounded windows. So that's what I'm drawing out here. And I'm not going to show the cutting of it because I've already shown that in detail on part 1. So you can find a link to that video in the description box. Again, putting some more up arrows so that I don't lose track of which direction I want to glue everything together. And then setting about gluing it together. And it was upside down, so I had to twist it around there and just cleaning off the excess glue and going to set that aside. Oh, not yet. I'm gonna glue on the other walls before I set it aside. So just trying to get everything going the right direction. I continually keep checking for those arrows, and that's just like I said, so that I know which way to glue. And it was confusing too because the print, one of them had the print on the inside and one had the print on the outside. So that was also a confusing part of this. So it helped continually know that those arrows were there. And then this, I've set it there and I'm going to set it to dry. Set it up against something and hold it. So I'm going to place this off to the side. And then bring in our door. Remember, I had glued the door together before with those panels. So now I'm going to put some decorative hinges in place. And then I'm going to set about gluing them in the opposite arrangement as the way that I had it when I just showed it. I don't know how I ended up doing that, but that's what happened. And here I'm trying to find a good hold with the tweezer that's not in all the glue. And that curly piece was bending around. And see how I'm putting that was the longer piece I had on the top, and I just somehow made that mistake. And I didn't discover that for days. So it's kind of funny to me now, thinking back. And just cleaning up that extra glue that squished out. I'm going to take opportunity to put it on the back of the doorknob because I'm about to glue that in place. And the doorknob is just a small length of paper rolled in a coil and glued together. So it looks like a little slice of wood was taken and stuck on the door. And going to set that aside to dry as well. Oh, clearing up a little bit of glue. And going to set that aside. And this is the loft. It's now 2 layers. So I'm ready to see exactly where I want to install it. And I'm going to make some marks where to put those ledger boards, because I want to be sure. And I'm taking measurements here just to see if I'm happy with it, how big do I need the bed to be and all that stuff, which I did end up researching bed sizes, mattress sizes rather, so that I could make it in scale. And you'll see that that is going to lead to a bed that is uber cute. Just trying to find another scrap to make this a double thickness of the chipboard. And this method of tracing is useful for me. I did make a little pattern so that I can make another bed in the future, and that pattern made it easy for me to place it right on the loft and see what I'm working with. And although there won't be a lot of extra space, and I don't know where the steps will be yet, where entering the loft will occur, so that's kind of what I'm imagining as I'm putting that bed on the loft piece. Here I'm measuring the height of the bottom of the loft, or the ceiling of the downstairs area, and I decided to go with 4 feet, which would, in my mind, would be similar to an 8-foot ceiling. I'm sorry, 4 inches. And that would be similar to an 8-foot ceiling in real life. Even though the door is a little shorter, the occupant will probably have to duck into the little woodland house. And here I'm going ahead and adding those ledger boards onto those marks that I had made with the pen. And I'm trying to show through the window exactly what I'm doing, but it's very difficult to see. I realize that. That seems to be an ongoing theme with this project. And using the tweezers to place this one. And just lining it up with my marks. And going to let that dry. And here again, I'm fiddling with the bed to see where I might place the bed once I get it made. And now I've grabbed a piece. I decided to put a railing on the loft so nobody falls off the loft. And I did little slices every 1/8 inch or so. And I was actually hand cutting these out. And I don't end up keeping this, but I did go through this process of making this little railing, which is definitely patience testing. And like I said, that knife isn't the sharpest, so it just took several cuts. And here I'm going to set about gluing the railing in place. And the best way I've learned, especially with a piece like that piece that's wanting to straighten out even though I've curled it or folded it, is to glue one side on. It's kind of like an extra hand. Once that side glues in place, it's much easier to glue the rest of it. So I'm just going to let that one portion glue, and I was able to set this clip close enough to keep the railing upright and set it aside to dry. And here the bed in double layer has dried, and I'm just trimming off the pieces that protrude from the other piece so that the edges are sharp. And here I'm imagining a headboard and how it might look, and just trying to, here I'm showing that I've placed the wall in place on that dormer, and I hadn't considered originally that I was going to need a little triangle shape piece of wall right above the window. Oh, I'm dealing with the roof line here. I'm sorry. So the roof line is kind of tricky to figure that out, and I did need to use those curved edges. I was so thankful I still had the scraps. So just trying to figure out exactly where I want the very top point of that little piece of roof, and going to make some marks on the paper. Here I had a quick thought, maybe I should do a little curved roof, and then I went back to doing the pointed roof. I don't know what you call that, a gabled roof? I'm not sure what the name of that is. Here I'm just making marks where to cut. So that I have a roof line. And you know, there's eaves. They're not actually setting on the roof the whole way down. And just double checking my marks, transferring to the other piece, and then going to make the cuts using the lines on the mat to square up. And that middle piece, it needed to be squared up, and that's what I'm doing here. That line is not straight, so when it attaches up on the ridge line of that piece of roof, it's not going to seal. So I'm just cutting that off for a straight line. Several passes to get through the chipboard. Again. And just, I guess I had to do that on both pieces. I don't know the best method of making roof lines like this, but this is how I went about it, and just evening up the pieces so that I have symmetry on each side of the roof there, even though I am going to trim those down. It was helpful to prop the front of the house up on that bottle of glue. That's why you see me continually doing that, because I could get this roof line right at eye level for myself. Now I'm using the grid on the cutting mat to help myself cut that little line. And I found it easy, got my head in the video again, found it easy to move the line. I'm right-handed, so I moved the piece of paper where I could use a printed line as a guide for my eye to cut that piece off. And then adding the glue, trying to determine which part was the ridge so I can glue these two together. That was a continual thing with the printing on one side, and one is facing in and one is facing out, so that constantly got me, but I hung in there anyway. So I'm just trying to hold it in place for right now while the glue gets a little tacky and starts holding on, and going to make a little piece of paper as kind of a hinge, but also it'll go across that join and hold it in place. So of course I chose to create that after I had started holding the piece of roof in my left hand. So just trying to do that one-handed, and then just using my ruler to push it into the crease there, just like you saw me do earlier, wiping the excess glue onto my hand. And then I did decide to go ahead and double that up. So you see, that's what I'm doing here, trying to cut another length and fold it lengthwise and stick it into the glue again. Wiping the excess off. Then I'm going to reinforce those beads of glue. Now that I have the little paper in place, I'll reinforce the parts where there is no paper with more glue. I think I'm going to test it on the house real quick. And I see it. It does look good. The angle is, I'm happy with it. So I set it aside to dry. Or actually, this is where I'm realizing, oh, I need that piece of wall above the window. So I'm having to trace this just to get that piece, that triangular shaped piece. So that's what I'm doing here. I'm just trying to get another piece. Trying to use the scraps, you see. I'm sure people that are more experienced at this might be cringing if they're even watching, but going about it in this way worked for me. I like to figure things out. I do, of course, I love to watch some other YouTubers that make miniatures, but I also like to try to figure some things out for myself. And it is different when you try to do it. I highly recommend making these things for yourself. So just taking some measurements from the wall, and I glued them and just clamping them together. And setting them aside to dry. And then I decided that I needed an arch top, so there'd be a little bit more window. I can fit this under that piece of roofing that I just made. So again, this is sped up video. If you're going to cut like this with an X-Acto knife, please be very, very careful. So again, I'm taking the loft. I've finished gluing the railing onto the loft, and here I'm just trimming up the edges so it looks like I got it placed on the edge of the loft perfectly, which I did not. But once I've trimmed away the edges, it looks pretty good. So just admiring my handiwork and trying to imagine the loft being used and seeing what I think. I wasn't very happy with that railing and putting it in place, trying to look in, and I was realizing, well, you're not going to be able to see anything on that loft. And probably, and here's where I'm putting the bed in, and then here's some real-time footage.
Okay, so I have the little loft piece finished with the railing, but I have unfortunate discovery that my bed is too large. Although I love the little bed, it is too large for the loft, especially when you consider the roof line is angled. So I have decided I might still use this little bed, so maybe more than one person lives here. So I'm going to make a small bed. I'm trying to stay within scale. So what I did was when you look up standard mattress sizes, you find what they call a small twin, and it's basically narrower. So that is this. So I took my pattern, and basically the small twin is only 1¼ inches wide. So if I take the other bed mattress off for comparison purposes, you see how much shorter this one is. So I'll be able to stick this in here, and I've also decided to not go elaborate with the bedposts and what have you. I will, although they're adorable and charming, I think that the loft is going to have to provide all the charm for this bedroom. So this is going to be like a little pallet bed. So I'll make a little bed, platform, and little feet, and then go from there. This is, you see it's labeled the mattress. I have the 2 layers of cereal box chipboard being glued together and held under a heavy book right now. So then I'll put the legs on that, and then there should be enough space right here for a little dresser or maybe a side table with a lamp. I'm not sure. I find that I have to fight my natural tendency to want to way overdo things. So the other thing to consider is, how are they going to be able to get up to the loft? Whoever is going up to the loft, how do they access it? So if we look inside again, I've placed a clamp just because I was trying to, you see the 2 ledger boards that I placed in there, and those are supposed to help me hold the loft up. But I couldn't do it without the clamp, and I was trying to get sort of a sneak peek in here to see. If you look inside, it's kind of cool. You can see it in there, the loft fell out. But I have to consider, how do we get up there? So of course, in my overdoing thinking, I was going to try to make a spiral staircase, but I don't think I'm going to be that enterprising this first go around. I'm going to just go with a ladder. So At least that's the plan right now. I don't know. Things aren't finalized at all. So that's going to be the plan. I've got to figure out where to put the other furniture. Where's the other bed going to go if I do use that first bed? And what else is going to go in here? I figure there needs to be a small little sink, maybe a chest of drawers. I've been toying with the idea of the chest of drawers. It's bigger than I was thinking. So even with the scaled down sizing. So I don't know. And it is convenient to be able to work on this little platform, because then I can know, what is going to go where. So the loft will hang above this, so you can see how much of I did get quite a bit of foot area there. But the bed will fit. But look, if I put the bed there, it's going to be difficult to have a ladder coming up right there. So maybe the bed needs to go either under the loft, or I don't know, maybe this other corner. I have to figure all of this out. And I think other things that need to go inside the house, probably, like I said, maybe a chest of drawers and probably a little table to sit at to eat. And there's probably not any running water in here, but maybe a little stove and a place to keep a bucket of water. And I guess that's probably about it for this little tiny woodland house. So that's where we are. I'm going to keep on going on.
Okay, so I just took the small bed and I'm placing it in place, and I did take the time to make a little tiny bedside table. And just taking a look here, you see I've cut some of the railings out, or balustrade out of the loft railing, and I like that better because I'm going to show here in a moment, once we put it in the house, you can actually, it will be difficult to see in there, but we can see better what might be in there. And you'll see when I show the making the bedding that I'm going to choose some bright bedding. So thank you so much for watching part 2, and part 3 will be coming up soon.